Hello everyone else, welcome to new video. Today I'm going to talk about why many Japanese people do not like immigrants. I have been thinking about this issue for a long time and I'm going to try to give an answer in this video, but it's going to be tough and it's not going to be easy peasy. Mostly there are a bunch of immigrants in Japan from China, from Nepal and from Sri Lanka. Mostly the immigrants in Japan coming from the China and we can just understand them as a student. And mostly most of the Chinese people are the students in Japan, and mostly the Chinese immigrants, approximately 1 million people, are living there as some like a immigrants. So it's a very understandable. It's a very great topic here. So another thing, what we are going to mention and what we are going to think about that people are living in Japan cannot be just understand with the Japanese society. Most of the Japanese society has a different kind of core, and it cannot be split worldwide. Mostly they are just trying to defend their core in their inside, and they're not trying to expand their culture with the others. So it is some like an isolated country. Once upon a time, lastly, I had just got a message from someone who are living in Germany in a Japanese German society. Japanese German society is really important in Japan, or also in the Germany. Most of the Japanese German society living in Frankfurt. I have always wanted to go to the Frankfurt because the Essen or the Düsseldorf and the Essen are so big countries for the Japanese societies in Germany, and they are also living in Frankfurt. The Frankfurts are based on the Japanese society. They are living there, they are doing the trading there, and they are just splitting their culture there, and there are a bunch of cultural places in the Düsseldorf and Frankfurt. Frankfurt is very important. Maybe if we can give an example as a Frankfurt. So people can just do the trading in the Japanese German society, and also there are a bunch of companies in the island. The island and Japan relationships are so important here because this relationship is coming from before the Sakoku Jidai. Even in the Sakoku Jidai period, like which is the 300 years, something like or 200 years ago, there was something like 214 years, or if you're just like thinking about the Tokugawa agreement, we can count it as a 215 years Sakoku period. Maybe it's starting from the 1800 and 1600 to 1800 like that. So maybe we need to just think about the ideal Sakoku period before just understanding this topic. Sakoku period, let's give an example. 1603, and it's finished 1867. Some can be known in some facts. Maybe someone is talking about the 217 years, but I'm going to take 215 years as a Tokugawa agreement. So the another thing we want to come back to our ideal resources here. Let me check it. So even in this period, the island government and the Japan government have made a great relationship. They were still ongoing the trading rather than the other countries, because other countries like some Portugal, Spain, I'm not sure Spain, but the Portugal and in other some European countries came to Japan, and they start just missionarism in the Japan. But the Japanese government just forbidden them because they were trying to split the Christianity in Japan, as someone who was a shipper who was coming from the Europe or the Portugal or the Spain. So these things were so forbidden in Japan, but only the island government didn't try to split the Christianity. So Japan government thought that we have similarities between islands and Japan, so they made a great relationship. In this Sakoku period, nobody will be able to come to Japan but island. Island people would be just only the small amount of percentage, priorities just get when they are trying to come to Japan. So it was a very great experience here. So if we're just talking about the split between Germany and Japan, also it's based on the World War II. Because in the World War II, Germany, Japan, and Italy, and they were just made a great collaboration, and also sometimes Turkey didn't even want to go into the war, but if they will get into the war, probably they will thought that maybe they can get into the war in the Germany position, but it will be dangerous as well because they were the America there. because the America was so important for the war because they had the nuclear weapons. So even this period, the relationship between the Germany and Japan and Italy is based on the World War II. So after the World War II, just get getting defeat for the Japanese people or the some aliens for the Japan, like the Japan, Germany, and Italy have lost the war. That's the reason why after they just their empires have been dead, Mussolini gets Mussolini get hanged by their the citizens, and maybe Hitler went to the Argentina with the deep ship, and maybe the Hirohito, where Hirohito was still alive because the Japanese people didn't kill the Hirohito. Why? Because mostly Japanese people believe in Shintoism. In the Shintoism, your emperor is very sacred, and even you cannot touch him, and even you cannot see his face, even you cannot watch his face, you can look his face. So it is very important here. So most people are going to understand it. So the culture in the Japanese society, maybe it's some artificial culture, but it's a culture. I think that Shintoism is not a real religion because Shintoism is created by the culture. Mostly Japanese people just getting burned as a Shintoist and they are dying like a Buddhist. It is so complicated idea here. So the basic reason what I want going to mention that the Japanese society is some a very collectivist country and very collectivist culture. They are trying to believe that the emperor is very sacred and he is coming from the gods and he is just representing the gods message in this universe. So is it logical, brother? Not, because it's some artificial religion as much as I thought. Maybe someone else will going to just think it is opposite, but it is not. Mostly people can think it as a normal here. So even we are talking about the Japanese society, sometimes they are just complaining a lot about the immigrants. Why? Mostly they don't like the immigrants because of there's a island culture in Japan. If you are living in an island, mostly you need to know other peoples who are living in the island, and you have a great relationship. Because if you do something bad for in the island, you cannot escape anywhere else because the sea is just spreading all around the country. So the Japan has lived in isolation mode for a long time. So people didn't go abroad, and people from the abroad didn't come to Japan for a long time. So if the situation just make the situation worse because of that, Japanese people didn't make a great connections between the other countries as well. If you're asking my opinion, I have always wanted to live in other countries and just try to get the facilities like the swimming and just playing a table tennis. And even if you are a low level class, if you are living in the abroad, you have a chance to just experience this kind of facilities. If you are living in Turkey, it's very hard, even if you are subordinate class or the low level class. So that's the reason why even in Japan there's a hierarchy like the tachibas. So in the tachibas, if your position is better than others, mostly you can just give them their orders, like a samurai period or the ninja period. Most of the samurais were so priority of the branch and priority of the status, priority of the classes. So they were doing whatever they want. Even they would go to invade the other villages, and they would get any girl they want, and they would get any money they want. That's the reason why most of the samurais at the first they start as a good someone, and they were just helping the village people. But lastly, they start to create their own businesses, and they start to act they wish. So it will be bad experience for the other people. Even in Iran, people just starting to protest the government, and they are getting killed. And that's the reason why it's so hard. Even in Iran, the poets are so important, and the Iran society is so important for me. That's the reason why they need to just speak, they need to understand, they need to talk about their own ideas. The Iran government, the Iranian people are so important, and they have the great culture here for the Iranian people. And because before the Islamic religion, they were so free. Like think about Afghanistan. Even in Afghanistan, before the Taliban regime, they were so sacred, and they were so secular. So here, the dictators and some of the people who have tried to change their countries have made different kind of core, and they changed the core before of the Islam. just like because of the Islam, they try to use the Islam as their interests. So the other thing as their own wishes, etc. So let's think about Japan was never viewed as an immigration society. When discussing Japanese attitudes towards immigrants, many analyses begin with modern problems: labor shortage, foreign workers, demographic decline. But sociologically, this approach skips the most important layer. To understand the present, we must first understand how Japan was historically constructed as a society. The central thesis of this opening section is simple. Japan wasn't historically formed as an immigration society and therefore lacks cultural mechanism for absorbing outsiders echoes. Most of the workers coming from the other countries to Japan is saying to them, you guys are not very some like a very like you are guys temporary here and they won't be stay here as a citizen. That's the reason why Japanese people trying to understand it. Yes, we need labor and we need a lot of other country members for a while in Japan, but after their job is finished, they are just sending back to their own origin countries. That's the reason why it's a so upset situation for them. But if you get married to someone else from there, your situation will going to be easier. So as much as I thought before, I wish I have always wanted to get married with someone else from Japan and live in Japan, but it didn't happen because of the money. I couldn't just find a lot of resources in order to go to Japan, just try to get married someone else there and try to change my life. I just want to be a great vlogger there, just like interviewing with the people, just getting accepted by the Japanese society, but they didn't accept me. That's the reason why I'm just complaining a lot and just trying to understand the situation a lot. Even I was remembered in the World War II period, there was some unity which is called Unit 731, and they maybe tortured the people like the Nazis before in the some like camps like the kulaks from Stalin, like the kulaks from Stalin, etc. And the other things as well. They have started a massacre in the Nanking, and mostly in the resources they say that at least 100 people have been died and at least 20,000 girls just get raped and they get harassed by Japanese society, etc. But nowadays Japanese people do not accept this Nanking massacre, and they're saying that the numbers are so like adequate and they are just getting irrelevant. They are so irrelevant. They are saying that because of that, they are mostly mentioning and highlighting that the numbers in the Nanking massacre was something like 50,000, etc., approximately 50,000, and then people start to understand, and maybe they are making the situation minor in their sides, but I'm not sure. But I'm going to mention there were some like a massacre in the Japan, just getting by Japan in the China. They were the massacre, and it was the massacre in the China who is just getting made by Japanese society. And the other thing we want to mention that most of the Japanese people coming from the China and the Yayoi period, if we are just talking about the Yayoi period, most of the Japanese people getting, once upon a time there were the Chinese prisoners. The Chinese prisoners just get sent to Japan. That's the reason why Japanese society is really very some like prisoner culture, and they were so aggressive. Even the Australia, think about the Japan. Why this kind of people are so aggressive? Because mostly they are gens and they are like the database is coming from the China. And if you're thinking about the Japanese database coming from the China, most of the Chinese people, once upon a time when they were get the prisoners, all the prisoners they just get sent to Japan. So if you think about the Australia, most of the England people or the American people just try to get a deal and they send all the prisoners to Australia. That's the reason why this kind of countries are so rich now, because mostly the prisoners with that countries and they're something like a unique culture, and they are so aggressive here because of their genes coming from the prisoners. It is my point of view, brother, and even you don't have to accept it, and you can accept it. This is your idea because it's my own perspective as much as I know. So another thing, like a society without immigration as foundation. Unlike settled societies such as the United States, Canada, or Australia, Japan didn't put its national identity to mass immigration, population replacement, ethnic pluralism. So I don't civilization with long-term population continuity. So historical and anthropological studies constantly show that social belonging in Japan was never permanently legal. It was genealogical, cultural, and ritual. So, and when you go to Japan as an immigrant, maybe people can say you as a gaijin, or maybe they can label you as a gaigokushin. So, if you just get labeled by the gaijin, it means that they are going to make fun of with you, and they are not going to accept you. If you just think yourself as a gaikokushin there, mostly small amount of money, not just from Tokyo, not from the Osaka, maybe they are from the Hokkaido and other Aomori, which are the small cities. If you go to this kind of small cities, you have better chance to get accepted by the Japanese society rather than when you are comparing to metropolitan cities like the Osaka or the Tokyo. So people are here just trying to complain and trying to understand the situation, what's going on there. Mostly the Hokkaido people just coming from the Ainu. The Ainu society, which just get killed or which just get assimilated by the Japanese people, who are just coming to Yayoi period. If you are thinking about Yayoi period, they are coming from China and they call themselves Japanese. So in this situation, people just try to assimilate the Ainu people in Japan. For Japan, people assimilate the people in Japan, like the Ainus. So the Ainus just get very angry, and even if you are from Hokkaido, they don't like you a lot. And the Hokkaido people don't like the Japanese people a lot, I think. And also the Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And the Hiroshima and Nagasaki people, they also don't like the Japanese people at all. Why? Because after the World War II, just America bombed this kind of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. So the radiation and some like a very different kind of perspective just spread it there. For example, the mutation, the other things, maybe someone else from just getting impacted by the atomic bomb, the nuclear bomb, and their babies just burn as a not hand and as a not something like a finger, and that's the reason why mostly people in the Japan didn't hire to anyone who have burned in the Nagasaki and Hiroshima. They didn't get any job. Even they couldn't able to go to the big cities like the Tokyo and Osaka. That's the reason why the Nagasaki and Hiroshima people really hate from the Japanese people because the other cities didn't hire them. So it is kind of different. Even in Japan like as an some like a island is very big, okay, but the reason is the settle up and the living percentage of the people very small of the continent, and maybe its continent itself can be big, but the living continent and living place is really small in Japan. Even think about Russia is a very big continent, and you think like it is very small, but you cannot live everywhere else in the Russia. Most of the small amount of the places can be livable. Even if we are thinking about the China, maybe China is a very big country, but you cannot live everywhere else in the China. Mostly in the map, you can see the all around the borders, all around the island, all around just some like a fields, but it's not every place can livable there. So you need to understand what's going on, okay? So we are going to think about the other sides of the Japan and other things of Japan. So even we are going to think about like during the early state formation, especially in the Yamato period, identity was tied to lineage and ancestry, participation in shared rituals, language, and customs, loyalty to a symbolic center, the emperor. The emperor is very important in Japanese society because they think like the emperor as a god. What because of the base of the Shintoism, but according to my opinion, Shintoism just get built by the emperor itself. The emperor just created a fucking religion like a Shintoism, and they think like Shintoism very sacred and the god is protecting me, so you guys need to obey me. It's also people trying to, it's so very logical, just obey the emperor, because if we are to obey the emperor, we are just obeying to God. It just sounds like a very bad experience if you think about the Shintoism. Only in Shintoism, I have seen some reviews recently. There were some soldiers just getting in a memory, and they are just trying to memory to soldiers in Japan, but they are just memorizing to only Japanese soldiers, not the South Korean soldiers, not the other countries' soldiers. And South Korea just try to understand if also we are the Shintoists, like the South Korea think like we are the Shintoists, but only the Japanese people do not try to memory their South Korean soldiers. What's going on there? And they are trying to disagree with the situation, but there's nothing going to happen because Shintoism is solely belong to Japan. You need to understand because their culture created new religion. It should be unique. It doesn't like to be Buddhist. It doesn't like to be Confucius, like the Master Kong, like the Lao Tzu, some like the other religions as well. But they created their own religion instead of just getting attacked by the other religions. So it's a very great idea and it's very complicated as well. So let's get down into the other stages. Lineage and ancestry, we talked about it. Participation and in shared rituals, language and customs, loyalty to a symbolic center, the emperor. As a historian John V. Dover notes, Japanese identity historically emphasized continuity rather than incorporation. This means something crucial. In Japan, belonging was inherited before it was chosen. Inside uchi and soto, there are two concepts in Japan. The first one is like the uchi, which means like the inside, and also it also means like a house. The uchi means this you are from we, and the soto means you are not from us. Like if you are label someone in a bad way, you need to say him gaijin. It means you are not from us. And if you think about the gaikokushin, it means you are the foreigner. That's the two different concepts here. And sometimes if you just get here, if you someone else in Japan saying you gaijin, it means he is trying to bully you and he's trying to make fun of it you. If you just get here the concept of gaijin. But if you just hear the concept of gaikokujin, mostly people trying to respect you and people trying to understand you. There are two concepts. If you just get here yourself as a gaijin, probably you fucked up, brother. They don't like you. If you just get name as a gaikokujin, probably they are like you. You need to understand. Uchi and soto. Uchi means inside, soto means outside. So the speech, behavior, trust, responsibility is so different in the modern culture. Even in the modern, like after Meiji period, they start to make more civilization, more cultural priorities. Like they get affected by the mark after the Meiji period, after the World War II. Even when they are Japanese people just losing the World War II, not only but also all the Japanese military people, all the military males didn't get any attention by the girls. Most of the girls wanted to be in a winner's side and they tried to date with the American soldiers. Even the World War II, Japanese girls wanted to date with the American soldiers. If you just read the Yukimishima, the Sacred Temple, there are a bunch of books which are written by the Yukimishima. You can understand the situation. Even the war situation, Japanese male didn't attract for the Japanese woman because Japanese woman thinking that the American soldiers are winning and they are more successful than our soldiers. So it's better to get married with an American soldier and they can give us anything. They could be a more good provider rather than the Japanese males. So it's something like a very performative male. It is something like a different brother. Maybe you can think about the Byung-Chul Han and other concepts as well. But the concepts aren't give you a lot of solution here. Then mostly the solutions can be reachable, can be trustable, can be understandable, and also can be changeable. I also wanted to mention that this is so very important for us. I have written a lot of books by the Japanese people like Yukio Mishima, Natsume Sosaki, Osamu Dazai, Tanizaki, Akutagawa. Akutagawa, there was a riot by the Akutagawa, which his name is Kappa. It was very similar between the Japanese society and it was telling about the culture, like the man and the females. Even the man is trying to hide by the females because in the Japan you can think about the out of adult movies, the EB Sangyu and the other Japanese adult movies. There are a bunch of adult movie stars. It is 10,000 people who are living and who are just working in that industry because they want to get the easy money. Nobody's judging them. So because just getting money in Japan is really hard. Also the situation sound like, as I mentioned, that I really fell in love with the book of the Norwegian, which is Norway no Mori in Japan. Just getting right by the Haruki Murakami. It is very popular and you can understand the common life and just sound like a Watanabe. The character of Watanabe is very popular and I really fell in love with him. But not only, but also there are a bunch of porn stars in Japan. Kana Momonagi, Ai Yuhara, Hatana Yui, Andrew Suzuki, Nishikun. I know a lot of them, but I couldn't have any chance to go to Japan, just meet with them and other things. The writers, Sanaya Takaichi. No, it's a present. Like, Sayaka Murata, she just wrote a book about being a cashier. So it is a very good experience. I'm also just trying to write a book in my own sake, just getting to maybe 600 keywords and try to be free after just getting my just getting out my slavery, just wage slavery. Yeah. So people are trying to understand what's going on in Japan recently. And when I read that there are a bunch of immigration crises, most people think that the robots cannot replace by the human power. That's the reason why they need to get more immigrants. Why? Because their population is decreasing and their population is getting older. And most interesting, I have checked that data. The Japanese popularity just approximately 120 million, maybe 130 million people are approximately living, but most of their population is decreasing. Nobody's just trying to make babies. Their population is somewhat decreasing 120 million. The 10 million is getting loose. So it can be a very bad experience for them if they don't get the more immigrants. And who is just going to feed the other people as well? Who is going to feed the older people? They need more caregivers. They need more the people who are going to support them. So it is better to get more immigrants from the other countries. But mostly it doesn't give you any solution because Japanese people don't want to deal with the foreigners. They cannot deal with each other because Japanese people think themselves superior than the other races, and they want to dictate their ideas and they want the other people respect them. What is the meaning of respect? Respect means just saying hello, hello. They need to just respect mutual. No, the Japanese people's expectations are so different. They want to make other people respect to them. In a respect, which is meaning if you're just going to open this verse, it means you need to obey them. It is not a respect, brother. You need to obey their rules. It is two different kind of words. Because mostly they are giving the different kind of meaning to respect. In just the European mode, you can understand what is respect. Respect is just mutually connection and mutually respecting each other. But if you just think about the Japanese side, they are giving different kind of meaning to respect. For example, if you think about what is the meaning of respect for the Japanese people, it means you need to obey their rules. It is not a respect, you need obligation. It's not a mandatory, it's obligatory. It's not a mandatory, obligatory. So it is so different kind of creed. It's something like a different kind of obligatories are there. So respect means obligatory. In the respect means respect in the Europe, but respect means obligatory in Japan. You need to understand most of the people and the society is given different kind of meanings to concepts. So the other things we want to mention that the anthropologist Ruth Benedict famously observed that Japanese society places a strong emphasis on context, rule, relational positioning, situational and relational. Like the foreigners by definition enter society as soto, all sides the shared, unspoken rules that structure everyday life. This doesn't automatically create his hostility, but it does create distance. Mostly there are a bunch of people are living in Japan as an immigrant, but they cannot accept by the Japanese society. They are not accepting them. They cannot get accept. Why most of the people in Japan who are living there trying to get accept each other rather than the other people? Because you have always be a gaijin for them. You cannot get accept by them. And when you wanna go to the volleyball, playing the table tennis, they are think like you cannot enter the society. And when you just speak 101% Japanese, and when you speak it truly, purely Japanese, it doesn't even mean that your appearance is different. And when you just have half Japanese, half Indian, who are living in the Japan, maybe you are the half Korean, half Japan, even they don't accept you as a pure Japanese. They are not hiring you. They are not trying to understand you. Their potential is so less, and that's the reason why mostly the half people in Japan cannot get accepted by the Japanese society. Even their mother or father can be Japanese, but they need to get born in the father, mother, fully Japanese families, rather than just half Japanese, half Indian, half Japanese, half Korean, half Japanese, half Chinese. They are not accepting it, but I have always just get more friends from Japan. They were living in the 7-Eleven or the 7-Mart. I have always wanted to live there and just record more videos, but it didn't happen. So I'm just trying to understand their culture, their uniqueness there. From there, it's so understandable here because the situation can be changeable, but can also be understandable. Like my curtain here is not good, but we are trying to understand and trying to get the better experiences for ourselves. We are not going to happen anywhere else, but it is so hard for us, like trying to manage this curtain. I wish I had a better curtain for now, but it didn't happen, so we are trying to make normal curtain here, and it is not a very individual, but it is so important for us. And on the station here, let's turn back. So foreigners as a guest, not future members. Historically, foreigners in Japan were perceived as temporary visitors, traders, specialists, controlled outsiders. They were rarely imagined as permanent members of society, political participants, cultural inheritors, and they cannot be permanent members of the society in Japan. You can just immigrate to Japan, you can just stay there for a while, but you cannot be permanent member of the Japan. So it's very complicated and it's arrogant because if you are just born in the Middle East, like the Turkey, like the Iran, Syria, they really hate from you. But they really like the white people. What is the meaning of a white? It's not meaning white like the from Middle East, right? They are just like the means American people, not European people. They really sound like adoring the American soldiers, American people. The white means for they like the white guys. What it means the American guys as a white. We are just getting to understand. If your passport is more valuable, if you are an American guy, most of the people is jumping your dick or something else like because they want to get married with you if you are American born. They are just giving you a job. Mostly why? Because the America just conquered the Japan before, and that's the reason why they are respecting the Japanese. They are respecting the American people. So it is so hard for me because I'm a Turkish and they are not respecting me because my ancestors didn't conquer the Japan before. Fuck them up. They sent the ship, Ertuğrul ship like Ertuğrul ship. Like there was some like the game Fırkateyn Ertuğrul, like the Ottoman Ottoman some like corroboration. They sent the ship name was Fırkateyn Ertuğrul to Japan, but it just sink in the ocean when they are trying to come back. So it was a so bad experience for us, but it was a great trying, and they tried to just make a connection between the Japan and Turkey, but it didn't happen a lot. It was a very long time story here because the Japan is very far from the Turkey. Even you want to go there, at least you need to be in the plane at least 20 hours. It is so far if you are not planning directly. If the plane is not very fast, so the distance is so long, so people cannot just deal with each other easily. So you need to understand the situation in a very very first sight. So the another thing we are trying to mention, which is after the concepts of that, the distance. The distance is so long, okay? The foreigners as guests, not future members, we just talked about it. The result, like some like even like this pattern, cultural inheritors, political participants, permanent member of society, they were rarely imagined. They were rarely imagined as. They were rarely imagined as permanent members of society, political participants, cultural inheritors. Okay? As a sociologist, Eiji Oguma explains, Japan developed as a strong narrative of ethnic and cultural homogeneity, Tanitsu. Sorry guys, Tanitsu Minzoku. Even when this homogeneity was partially mythologized, it functioned as a social ideal. The result was a cultural habit that persists today. Foreigners may live in Japan, but becoming Japanese is seen as fundamentally difficult, if not impossible. Why does matters today? Renewal, enrichment, normal social change, disruption risk, loss of predictability, so they cannot understand the future if they're just going to accept this kind of people. If they accept them, they can be threat for the Japanese society and they can conquer the Japanese society. They don't want to just get conquered the travel from the inside. That's the reason why it's so important. When you think about the Truva period, Truva horse, like do you know the Truva horse? Truva horse is so important, brother. Like even I'll mention that another things like even the golden age of the Islam is not very some like a highlighting. Maybe they are thinking like there was some like the golden age of Islam. Maybe Ghazali, Ibn Sina, Ibn Rushd maybe it's so different. Ibn Ghazali, Ibn Sina, Farabi, Ghazali. I'm not sure that even in this some like a golden age of the Islam, they were just trying to create some like a namaz-based solutions. For example, the times for the namazgah, and they aren't just trying to do the astronomy. Yeah, they are trying to do astronomy, but not very complicated. Yeah, there were so great scientists when the golden age of the Islam, this period, but I'm not sure whether is that really what we are thinking it today. So we need to delve into it a lot. I hope I can just make a research about it, but I'm not sure whether it is real or not, because I'm not going to underestimate the golden age of the Islam, but mostly, as much as I just researched it, at this kind of age, mostly they are trying to invent the new namazgah and the times for the when they are going to pray the mosque, when they are going to go to mosque for just doing the praying to God, this kind of rituals, and they try to build something the o'clocks for their rituals, something like that. But not only this kind of things, but also there were invited different kind of things, but it's so different. So this helps explain why resistance to immigration in Japan is often quiet rather than violent, polite rather than aggressive, structural rather than emotional. It is not driven primarily by hatred, but by historical continuity, preference for social stability through sameness. Like the Japanese discomfort with immigration doesn't begin with immigrants. It begins with how Japan itself was historically formed. Like the vast into the next part, we will see like the other things turned into explicit state policy. So the other things, the part 2, I want to mention, it was started with part 1, so it was very long. We can check that out. Why many Japanese people don't like immigrants? Sakoku, isolation turned into state policy. Even in the Sakoku period, most people just understanding in a two ways. The first phase, people were so close to abroad, so close to get knowledge from the other countries, and they couldn't get any information by the other countries, and they fucked up as a scientific way. But the other side we are talking about in this Sakoku period, maybe we can just think about the Meiji restorations. In this period, people get more effect in the science, math. They start to build math. They start to understand the science, and they made great contribution to country in this period. So isolation period just create the boom up the country, and they just develop the country. This kind of isolation periods were very thanksgiving. Some people think like that. There are two concepts here. So from cultural tendency to political system, the established foundational point, like in this culture and power, explicit state policy, the Sakoku period, and during the Edo period, the Tokugawa shogunate banned free immigration, banned Japanese immigration, restricted foreign trade to a few ports, like as I mentioned, that like islands, confined most foreigners to controlled zones. There were the controlled zone, which is name is example Dejima. Dejima is where Dutch traders were physically separated from Japanese society. Like the Dutch traders just getting into this Dejima, and they trying to do the trade, but they are not allowed to get into the Japan. Like the Osaka, Tokyo, they couldn't, I think. That's the reason why in American ships like the Pierre just came to Japan with their ships, and he said, if you don't open the borders, we are trying to delve into your country. And the emperor just scared, because mostly they came with the ships were so big, and even the emperor said we cannot just try to fight with this America, so they opened the borders. That's the reason why if you just get a power, you can do everything. As even Michel Foucault says, the knowledge is power. No, power is knowledge. It's so different. So this is important because Sakoku wasn't isolation born of fear, it was isolation as governance. While Tokugawa state feared foreigners and social order defined one religion, Christianity challenged loyalty to shogunate and emperor. Yeah, they just secret the spirit of the religion Christianity. The political instability. Foreign alliances could empower internal rebellions. Yeah, if the foreign just came to just Japan, maybe the internal rebellions can start. The cultural unpredictability. Foreign customs distribute the hierarchical norms. As a historian, Mark Ravina explains, the Tokugawa state viewed order as fragile and constantly threatened. Foreigners wasn't immortal, it was dangerous to predictability, and they couldn't understand, they couldn't just predict it, what they can do in Japan, what they cannot do. So the Sakoku will last for more than 26 years, 250 years, but I as I mentioned, 215 years is also understanding, because I'm just taking into the Tokugawa agreement. So this matters therefore because societies do not simply forget centuries of practice. When love change, the stability comes from exclusion, order comes from control. Difference introduce risks. The all side can be useful, all siders can be useful, all siders can be studied, all siders can be managed. So immigrants are often welcome as workers, but not as full cultural participants, not as long-term social equals. How difference itself was understood. Builder status contributes to natural growth, variable risk sources of friction. We grow by absorbing others. We survive by controlling who enters. Like Japan didn't learn that. We grow by absorbing others. Japan learned that we survive by controlling who enters. So without abandoning this logic, like in the other things, Sakoku transformed cultural preference into the industrial memory. Exclusion became associated with safety, order, and so even in the Sakoku period and after the major restorations, like some like a, we can talk about the Meiji. Sakoku period also just tried to just made the basement for the Meiji and other things. But even in the major restorations, this kind of years, the most of the industry just boom up. And when you think about the England industry revolution, the revolution that started in the Japan as well. In the major revolution, people try to work in the fabrics, and even the girls try to just work in the fabrics. Even when there were war times, if just the male population get decreased, most of the female people are are just trying to work the kind of jobs which the male were doing before because they have died in the wars. So it was a very bad experience for the other people, as I mentioned that. So before, as much as I know. So as soon as possible, I want to mention that the people were just living in the major restoration. The girls started to just attend to societal life, and they also create the anime, which is very popular, like the movies of the Hayao Miyazaki. Maybe the Princess Mononoke. Mononoke Ojo-sama. Ojo-sama! Ojo-sama! It's so important here, like, the Sanaya Takaichi, Sato, and the other the politicians, but we are talking about Hayao Miyazaki. The other, Sanaya Takaichi and Sato was just, Sanaya Takaichi and Sato were trying to support the traders and the small traders in the Japan. That's the reason why they want to just make a lot of contribution to society, and they were just supporting family plan, and they don't want to separate families. They want to just make the strong family connections in Japan. That's the reason why they just get chosen, because Sanaya Takaichi is very militarist, but and she's very nationalist. But I'm not sure nationalism will going to save the Japan. Not because if their population is aging and they need the immigrants, even they say the opposite, I think. So the other things we want to mention that even the porn industry in Japan is so different, and they are so, even at the first there were a bunch of shungas, and even the Heian period, Yayoi period, Yoi period, they were trying to draw a lot of pictures because of their alphabet, and also their alphabet is coming from the Chinese Hansis characters. They were trying to just draw a lot of the sexual positions to rocks, and there are a bunch of sexual positions which is shungas, and there's this one, their culture is a bit of sexual culture, and there are a lot of the some like a culture, maybe ubasute, and if you're just villages dying, people are suffering, they need to just sacrifice some people, which is the elderly people, mostly the elderly girls, and they're sending to ubasute, like the obachan is just go to the Fujisan, and they're just taking them to Fujisan, and they're just pushing them to fall, pushing them to ground from the Fuji. And other ubasute, it means culture of the ubasute, and other cultures, some like a yobai. If the male is very lonely, they can just travel around the house, and if the male can get into the house, if the girl accept him, probably they can do the sex in the house, in the yobai culture. So it is so important for them. Even the Japanese people are chatting each other a lot. And if you just chat your partner, you need to pay money. If you just chat your partner in China, even the military service, if your husband is working in the military service, you can go to jail in China. Though China is very conservative, and Japan is very of sacred, and the Japanese people are of some like a secular. Okay, even the Shintoism and the Buddhism beliefs can be changeable, and there are the secular sides of it. So you can understand which parts you want to say. But the yobai culture is also, as I mentioned, male can just travel houses. If the girls allows him, they can do the sex in their family houses, and the girls' family houses. So it's very different kind of view. Even they are just mostly, last they are starting the fruke, and they are using the SNS. They are using the SNS a lot, and even their metro or the subway, they are trying to read the some like a hentai. And they think like all the people around the world, they prank them, Japanese people, and just reading a lot of books, and it is not very correct. Brother, they are mostly reading the hentai. Even if you are just go to the bookstore, you need to understand there are two sides of the bookstore. The one first front side, you can see out of bunch of cultural Natsume Sosaki, like the Kokoro, and other things like the Osamu Dazai, Ningen Shikaku, Haruki Murakami, Norwegian Mood, Norway no Mori, and other maybe Kazuo Ishiguro is very important. The writer, he went to England. Maybe he'll just write "Don't Never Let Me Down." Never Let Me Alone. I'm not sure the book, and I have read it before. There, he was just talking about the people, talking about the children who are not have their families, and they're just it's a very bad story. But if you just Never Let Me Alone, like some like what was the name of the books? Like I'm going to mention like Never Let Me Alone. Never Let Me Alone. Like I'm not Ishigon. Never Let Me Go. Okay, Never Let Me Go. You can understand the Dark's book, like Woman Dawn as a Dark's book she's ever written, like the Ishiguro Kazuo Never Let Me Go. You can understand this book was very good from Japanese writer, as he worked as some like a different kind of job, but as I mentioned, it is so different and you can understand it in a different way. So it is can be understandable in a different mode because mostly people trying to understand. So in the Meiji period, as I mentioned, people just tried to, even they were just like the before days, they were drawing the pictures and the sexual pictures to the rocks, to the maybe the some like a parchment, maybe the some like a page, and they get to understand the situation. Then it became so popular. So the other things, Meiji modernization, import knowledge and not people. Even World War II, most of the Japanese like some like engineers just went to Germany and they tried to understand the machines, and they also copied this kind of machines and they tried to make their own machines. Even the anime sector and anime industry, if we are comparing the anime industry to the Hollywood industry, even the anime industry, you can do a lot of boom effects by just drawing them. Even the like some like which are the most popular animes like Attack on Titan, like Shingeki no Kyojin, and other animes like Boku Daka ga Inai Machi, which is Kimi no Na wa, and Princess Mononoke, and Tsubasa, and Beyblades. Maybe there were also the Chinese animes, but we are on Japanese. And Danma ke Inai Machi, Rizura Hajime Kajimaru, Yoyo Senki, and there were which was my favorites like Nanatsu no Taizai, and the other one which was very famous. I really like this. Some like maybe the other things as well. I was just talking about Kono Subarashi Sekai. It was one of my famous anime because just Subaru were stealing their panties. The people's panties is so different. Well, yeah, even the Elon Musk is trying to show the people in a panty mode, so you can understand it's better not using the fucking glasses. We're just expecting, we're just trying to observe the people because they're close. You can't understand it. So the upper thing like the exclusion became in this institutional memory, and in the 19th century, Japan did something extraordinary. It opened itself to the world at unprecedented speed, and Japan modernized its systems, not its population. So the other thing, this distinction is essential for understanding modern Japan's attitude towards immigration. Japan modernized its systems, not its population. Yeah, mostly you think like the system. For example, they are using the if you go to the hotel in Japan, maybe you cannot see under any receptionist there, and you need to do the online reservation, online book, and you can just enter your room and enter the some like this hotel without any notice. But the thing is, the society are still living in the back of the Japan. They couldn't just separate by their own heritage, by their own connections. That's the reason why we are trying to understand. Even the people are trying to adapt the robots, and they can adapt robots very easily, but their own cultural heritage. It's so important. The Meiji restoration opens without integration. The Meiji restoration, beginning in like the 1868, wasn't simply political reform. It was existential project. Western imperialism, colonization, loss of sovereignty. We must become modern without becoming Western. Western science, Western military organization, Western law, Western education, like the built railroads, designed universities, trained bureaucrats, modernized the military, they were temporary. They shared the three defining characteristic. They were temporary. They were cultural, contractual. They were excluded from social belonging. And foreigners are valuable for what they bring, not for who they are. Mostly, if you just bring value to country, they are showing respect. If you are just AI worker, if you are just engineer, they are respecting you. But if you are not bringing any country, if you are not bringing something to country, they are not respecting you. Even some like a trains. Okay, when we are talking about the trains in the Japan, mostly the America just focus on the make out of plane establishment. They were just trying to invest to planes. Rather, if you are thinking about the Japan, invest the train roads, the railways. Why? Mostly they thought that if you're just going to invest to planes in America, you cannot just go there everywhere else with the plane, but it can be expensive. But in Japan, they just like to make great railways, the Shinkansen, just Densha. There are a bunch of the railways in Japan. You can just go anywhere else by the train. It is so trustable. It's so cheaper. So economy is just boomed. Even when we are comparing to America, if the America just think about after the 300 years or after the something like not the 300, after like 30 years later, they thought that it will be more convenient just to make more made more invest to the train roads and the railroads rather than just investing the plane. So it was very convenient. If you are just using the plane, you cannot go anywhere else. But if you are using the railway, you can go anywhere else cheaper than the plane. So maybe the Shinkansen is very something like expensive. Most people don't use the Shinkansen. Even approximately it's cost 10,000 or 20,000 yen. Yeah, approximately it cost 10,000 yen. So 10,000 yen is very how much dollar like the 10,000 yen? Let me explain. Shinkansen price. Like if you are using the Shinkansen, some like a different price. Like some like Tokyo to Osaka 10,000 Shinkansen 10,000. Some like child ticket price is the 6,000. So let's think about the other things as well. Let's sound like a $100. Okay, the approximate not if you are just going to just give the exact opinion. The 30,000 870 Japanese yen equal 87 like some 87 US dollars. Okay, you need to understand. Approximately 80 like the 87 US dollars, 87 USD dollars. Okay, you need to understand. So the other things we are going to mention it today, and the other objects here, the major restoration. Maybe we talked about the other things as well, the Japanese modernization, the train, and the okay. So foreigners are valuable for what they bring, not for who they are. It's so important. Nationalism intensifies, not dissolves. The Meiji state actively constructed emperor-centered ideology, state Shinto loyalty as a moral duty, nation as secret. But as historian, Carol Glock explains nationalism in Japan wasn't ethic chaos, it was disciplined identity, the cultural conformity, emotional argument, moral discipline. So the emerge of the homogeneous nation myth, the Tanitsu Minzoku, a single homogeneous people. Sociologist Eiji Oguma demonstrates that his homogeneity was partly constructed, not purely factual. So, but once institutionalized through education, media, bureaucracy, it became social reality. Imagination challenged not only policy but identity itself. So the industrial strength, military power, colonial expansion, class confliction, ethnic tension, social fragmentation, diversities make strange. Too much difference creates instability. Thus Japan adopted modern capitalism without pluralism. So Japan learned to open its mind while keeping to its borders socially and culturally guarded. So most of the Japanese people decided who can just come to country, who cannot come. So some Japanese people see the some foreign as a threat and they are not allowing. But even if you go to Roppongi, Shinjuku, Shibuya, they have a lot of Nigerian people who are just working there as an just like the who are just trader, the girl trader, and they are selling to women, and they are also selling the drugs. Even the Japanese government allows them. They are selling the drugs in the Roppongi, Shibuya, Shinjuku, there were a lot of black people coming from the Nigeria. And if the Nigeria is a very basement for the just creating the drugs, even Afghanistan, they weren't able to do the trading to just export anything to other countries. They are trading. They are trying to do the invent and they are trying to trade off the drugs. So it wasn't very logical, not, but they are doing it because it's giving you a lot of money. But in the end, it's money is very dirty and you can get into jail. That's the reason why I wouldn't just choose that path. If you guys choose, because most of the young girls from the Aomori and maybe the Hokkaido, maybe the another small cities, they maybe the Fukuoka, they are trying to go to Tokyo. Even the Kanamamogi story is same. Like they want to go to the Tokyo with the Tokyo Tower, and they want to just make a lot of difference, and they want to be popular, and they want to get fame in the Tokyo. That's the reason why they are going to Japan, most of the big cities, the Osaka, the Tokyo, and they end up being an escort. That's the reason why most of the they don't blame the other things, they blame themselves. But it is something like what you can do if you're just trying. They are just changing their minds. They are just some like controlling some people controlling this kind of girls, and they are saying that if you just come to Tokyo, you have a better job opportunity, better job quality. Even in Dubai, they are just sending you a message on the Instagram, and they are telling you you can just come to Dubai, you can come to Tokyo, you can come to Roppongi, you have an job for you. But their jobs end up being a hostel or end up being a escort. Even there are some like a concept of childish girls and the parentless girls, and they are 15 years of girls trying to go to Shinjuku, Shibuya, and they are trying to achieve something different there because they want to escape from their families, because the families are so conservative in Japan. They are giving a lot of limitation to people there, so mostly people cannot go anywhere else without any some like a, how can I say, eliminate and some like a permission. If they cannot give permission, they can go another cities. Even the girls are so living in the very conservative culture. That's the reason why they hate from it a lot, and they want to change the cities, and they're escaping their cities, and they're going to Tokyo. But the inflation, the living expenses are so high in Tokyo. If you want to just live in an apartment, at least you need to pay 100,000 yen for an apartment as some like a rent. That's the reason why you cannot live in Tokyo. You can just continue to live. You can give it a try, but you need to live at the streets. But is it logical? Not. Most people trying to live in Tokyo, but not everyone capable of doing that. So the living expenses are so. If you just mostly the people trying from the small cities and the villages, they are trying to go to Roppongi, Shinjuku, Shibuya. They are trying to marry someone who is very rich from there. It's a very complicated idea, but I have also tried it before. I'm not going to say like I have also tried to go to some like Japan, which is different. In Japan, I tried to go there like in a different. What's the name of it? Like there was a hotel there in the Tokyo. I just forgot about it, but I went there. I tried to meet with the people there, but I couldn't be able to do that because. And there was some like a different, and they didn't talk with me because they didn't know me, and they more understand. I just came here trying to find a partner, just get married with someone else rich, and life going to be easier. Yeah, I also told it before, brother. I also went to Japan for that reason, try to get married with someone else who is rich. If I have a still chance, I want to get married to someone else from Japan who is very rich. So it is very understandable if any girls wants to just date with me. If any girl just wanna get married with me, it's okay. We can just get married if you are from Japan. So why mean Japanese people don't like the immigrants? The war, defeat, and the fear of the internal disorder. Like the first half of the 20th century brought Japan total war, imperial expansion, absolute defeat, foreign occupation, the collapse of order. Most of the foreigners occupied their countries and they smashed them and they controlled everything in Japan. They were so angry for that situation. The other country members came to Japan. They controlled their countries, so they didn't very content with that. That's the reason why they have a lot of prejudice about the foreigners. It's understandable. If you have read the book of Pride and Prejudice, you can understand it also. So the extreme discipline, collective obedience, moral conformity, suspension of devolution. Even the people are just saying the Japanese people are very in order. They are very clean. Sometimes it's not very true, brother. If you go to the sites of the Shinjuku, Roppongi, Shibuya, they are just trashing their trash. Mostly they try to sell their cultures as a unique. Japanese culture is very unique. Not it is not because it's not like a hallucination because they don't have any underground resources what they can sell to other countries. That's the reason why they are selling their culture as a unique, and they are saying that all writers are very famous. And when you think about the bestseller woman in America, what the fuck is the fucking bestseller woman, brother? Like I'm going to say it is a lie, brother. They are just saying you lies and they are expecting you to believe on that. So sameness equals safety, like it creates a powerful association. Like the 1945 wasn't only military. Cities destroyed, millions dead, empire lost, national purpose shattered. Japan experiences foreign country over its land, loves and future. For the first time in modern history, Japan was ruled by outsiders. Japan's sovereignty was suspended. The loss of control, vulnerability, humiliation. Even they were tried that they were unsuccessful. That after the World War One, they made great effort. Their empire was so powerful. Even they defeat the Russian people, they defeat the Chinese people, and they think like we can defeat everyone else then. But till they see the America, it is very complicated, brother. They thought that our dick is very big and we can fuck any girl till they see the other peoples are the very masculine man dick, which is the America, till they see the America's dick. they thought that their dick is very powerful till they see the America's dick. So it is very easy explanatory example instance for that situation, brother. Like they were for instance, for example, is very important. So the never allow chaos against stability, predictability, social harmony. Wa is very important. They think like the wa we need to just something like we need to defend the wa. Wa is the harmony, and also it means the Japanese culture sometimes. Like economic growth and within strict norms, because they don't want to see any problems. If someone else governing the Japan, mostly they want to see the problems. They don't want to talk about the problems, but there is a problem there. As a sociologist, like for example, if you are living in Taiwan, I don't want to talk about the problems, but the China can attack you anytime. I don't want to think about it, but there isn't a problem here. I have been living in Taichung for a long time, and so far a very complicated experience, but it was so good. As sociologist Charles Johnson argues, Japan's post-war success depended on coordinate conformity. Difference wasn't violently suppressed; it was quietly discouraged. War, occupation, instability, loss of sovereignty, external different, internal vulnerability. Defensive rather than aggressive, structural rather than emotional, and the harmonious middle class ideal. The peaceful, homogeneous middle class nation. Some like we are just talking about the middle class. Middle class is dying in Japan, brother. Like middle class is not very powerful in Japan. Mostly there are the two sides of the Japanese culture. The first is the small amount of money, maybe samurai, and the subordinate class who are the people just mostly obeying to some kind of bosses, like the Yakuza people. I'm not sure. It was the same in the history, but it is still continue their effects. Okay, maybe not the Yakuza are not really exist nowadays, but some like it's changed. Mostly some of the people are very upper than others, and they are trying to control the other people as well. So it is so different. Maybe the samurai period is died, but the other periods is start, just based on their other cultures as well, the historical events. So the issue is like when we are just trying to control it about talking about the situation. There are still, according to maybe on two classes, the upper class and the subordinate class. Subordinate class is trying to just fit the up class, and they are trying to live in the harmony. Maybe this is some like an effect of the Manichaeism. You can think about the Manichaeism and you can just search about it. I'm not going to continue about it. So there are two classes in the Manichaeism, but the subordinate classes are just blasting and praying for the upper class, but the upper class cannot do anything they want. But in Japan, upper class can do anything they want, and mostly they are trying to find and hope, just going to Roppongi, Shinjuku, Tokyo, and trying to be famous there. So it is understandable. It's the same everywhere else. Even in Trukai, there are people trying to go to Istanbul. They want to work as a model. But you know what kind of job they are working as a model? Sorry guys, we are working as a model. Like, what's your job? I'm model. What does it mean? What they are doing generally? They are working as a model, brother. That's the reason why it is so understandable. Like, we are the models. What the fuck are you doing if you are a model? You have a tag on the Instagram as a model. We are working as a model. Like, you are the Instagram model. What they are doing? They are just coming into the underside of this table. And what the fuck are they doing? I'm not sure. So visibility difference, social and productivity, potential conflict in its healed trauma, its restored pride, its promise, predictability, as I mentioned, introducing visible difference, social unpredictability, potential conflict, like emotional memory resisted it. So okay, the homogeneous middle class, as I mentioned, the quiet exclusion, not open hostility, polite distance, institutional barriers, societal invisibility, employment ceilings, housing refuel, permanent outsider status, Japanese resistance to immigration is shaped not only by culture but policy. Okay, most of the immigrants cannot find a lot of permanent reasons. Even they could able to find a permanent reason, most of the Japanese house owners don't want to give a rent to foreigners. That's the reason why foreigners are just suffering a lot. They cannot find the houses easily in Japan. It is so important here. There are a bunch of reports out there, and there are a bunch of political disasters, political things, and even finding a job in Japan is so hard. Why? Most of the people in Japan need to understand like some like cultural things as well, like sonkeigo, teinego, and other things. Sonkeigo, teinego, and the hankeigo. Like keigo is very important. Keigo, sonkeigo, teinego. You need to understand. For example, 知ってる? Yeah. ご存知ですか? You need to say the ご存知 rather than the fucking 知ってる. It's so rude. Or the 知ってるの? 分かってるの? Yeah, you shouldn't be able to say that. Even the めちゃくちゃ ahoy. It sounds like Kansai band, other band. There are a bunch of bands. Kansai band, Osaka band. Not Osaka, I mean like Kansai. Dialect. It's a dialect is so important. Dialects are so important. There are a bunch of bands there. Osaka band, Kansai band. Aho means baka in some other bands. And めちゃくちゃ. It sounds like mecha. It's not めちゃくちゃ. It means totemo. Yeah, totemo, めちゃくちゃ. Like, there are a bunch of similarities that you can understand. Why many Japanese people don't like immigrants? The demographic crisis means cultural resistance. So sound like Japanese immigrants economically, but resist them culturally. Yeah. An aging society with shrinking labor, low fertility rate, rapid population decline, growing elderly population, shrinking workforce. Like as a political economist, David Leahy notes Japan's demographic trajectory threatens economic productivity, care system, social security, sustainability, limited, conditional, and temporary. And yet immigration remains limited, conditional, and temporary. Japan prefers solution, labor without settlement. Import labor, not people. The technical intern training programs, TITP. Like mostly they are just hiring more the stagiaires from the other countries. The most interns, they are hiring interns and they are paying the low money and they are using them as a cheap labor, and then just they are sending them back their own countries. So is it logical just immigrate to Japan? Mostly in the end you won't immigrate there. In the end they are going to just send you back to your origin. It's so sad. Also, I'm just so sad the people who are just trying to protest the Iranian government, they were killed. I'm so sorry for them. So it's a lot of things. The short-term work visas and highly respective to paths to citizenship. Even if you wanna just get the citizenship, at least you wanna be 5 years, get married with a Japanese woman, maybe 10 years. I'm not sure. The love is changing. Mostly, if you wanna get the Japanese citizenship, at least you need to just stay there 10 years, maybe. It's so hard. So it is not a guarantee in the end. The as caregivers, as factory laborers, as construction workers, foreign workers are welcome. Like caregivers, factory laborers, and construction workers are welcome because mostly they want to work in the some like a uchi. The uchi needs a lot of the construction workers, and the Toyota means the Toyota other cities, and maybe even the coming from Toyota, Tokyo, their cars are so different. Toyota is more representing middle class, and they are doing the top like some like a Toyota. Even if the Aichi, mostly the workers are just working in the Aichi. It's so important. Like they are the construction workers and working in the Aichi. If you want to be construction worker in Japan, mostly they are going to send you to Aichi. So it's okay, understandable. The caregivers are so important. The Filipinos, so important. The Vietnamese, and the Vietnamese people just can work in a health organization because most of the Japanese people hiring the immigrants from Vietnam and from Philippines, not from the Middle East, not from the European countries. Mostly they are hiring some like outside from the other countries, Vietnam, Thailand, and Filipinos. They are hiring this kind of people from these countries. That's the reason why they are not hiring from the Turkey and the Iran. They are not hiring from Germany. Mostly they are just South Asia and some like how can I say, not South Asia and the West Asia and the South Asia, like the other things as well. You need to understand the Asias. the Southwest Asia and the South Asian and the like some like a South Asia. I mean, we're gonna talk about South Asia. Like the South Asia, we are like the South Asia, the South Asia countries, then East Asia. But there are also the East Asia. Okay, the East Asia and the West Asia, and the West Asia. Like the West Asia, maybe not West Asia, like the other things as well, like the South Asia, West Asia, and East, and the other things like somewhere like the like North Asia, maybe like the and some like a size like the Asian size. Maybe let's check me data, and I'm going to try to understand what's going on there. And like the South Asia and North Asia, and which ages are be could more. Like the South Asia, North Asia, I'm just trying to understand. Like the Filipinos, Vietnamese, they are mostly working in the different kind of size, their size. Like the other things, like the South Korea, maybe the other things, the East Asia, China, Japan, Korea, East Asia, and South Asia, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and West Asia, Middle East. Mostly they are not hiring from the Middle East, like the West Asia. And the Central North Asia, Kazakhstan, Mongolia, Serbia, they are also hiring from this kind of people, the Central and North Asia, not from the West Asia. That's so sad. South Asia, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, they are hiring. Even they have hired one, maybe they were just saying that they would hire more than 1 million, approximately 1 million Indian people. I'm not sure whether this is true or not, but this kind of news. Maybe, am I not sure, remember correctly? Maybe the other, maybe 200, 1 million Indian immigrants to Japan. No, 500,000. Like, yeah, 500,000 or 500,000 Indian people were just expecting to go this kind of Japan. So is it true? Yeah, kind of news, but I'm not sure whether it's can be true or not. But mostly they are coming East Asia and they are coming to South Asia. Yeah, it's understandable. It's kind of like a different kind of things, like the culture inheritors, the knowledge and the labor are acceptable. Social transformation is not. The changing your class in Japan is so hard. There are a bunch of tachibas here, and the senpai kohai correlation. If you are in the kohai, you cannot disagree with your senpai. What the senpai is says mostly correct, and you need to continue and you need to believe your senpai. Is it correct? Not, but it is the real kind of Japan. You know, they are kind of different. And in the media, mostly Japanese people are smiling, but mostly they are not smiling. They hate from me. Even they hate from me, they are smiling. Yeah. Mostly they have the honne and tatamae. What's the reason of honne tatamae? Honma, they are saying and they are showing their real face, and tatamae, they are hiding their real faces. That's two different things. Difficulty renting housing, workplace class sellings, and bunch of sound like a pressure and mobbing in Japan. Mostly your colleagues can mobbing you, and it's so hard. Permanent foreign labeling, limited social inclusion despite fluency and long resistance. The anthropologist Roger Goodman emphasized that Japan's exclusion is often structural rather than emotional. The problem is not hostility, is not an absorption. If you just do something bad for the society in Japan, they can expel you and you cannot re-enter the society, and you can live under the escalators in the Japan. So it is so hard for them. If you just get expelled by the Japanese society, 排除されるのはそう悪いと思っています。社会から排除されるのは私にとっては超悪いことだから、私はこのことについてなれる可能性がないと思っています。私は子供から日本に行きたかったけど、日本に行かなかったので超悲しくなってきた。でもそれは私のせいではないですよ。それは普通なことですよ。お金がないならどこにも行かないですよ。それはそうから、私は日本の女性と結婚したいですよ。私は排除ですか？排除じゃないですよ。私は順調ですか？いや、私は男だから順調にならないですよ。それはそうだからね。私にもっと聞いてくれてありがとうね。そうね。I'm just going to continue to speak about that. So the immigration challenge and the harmony model. Implicit rules, shared expectations, non-verbal coordination, rule expression, cultural negotiation, visible differences, social friction, communication cost, anxiety over mistakes. The Japan often prefers automation over immigration. Do not disrupt norms, do not demand recognition, do not challenge identity. The sociologist Hiroshi Ono observes Japan frequently choices technological adaptation over social diversification. The diversity in Japan is not a harmony. They don't like the diversity. Like there are a bunch of the gurabaruka. They don't like the gurabaruka diversity. Taiyosei. They hate from the Taiyose, like the different kind of views, different kind of classes, different kind of race. They want to just stay in a one race rather than just combine the other races. They are not racist, but they want to be just keep the harmony alive rather than just hiring more different kind of people to Japan. So the economic and cultural logic, Japan must accept immigrants, but society do not operate on economic logic alone. Japan operates on historical memory, cultural preference, fear of disorder. So temporary control, reverse, not as nation building. They scare from the foreigners. Maybe they can just disobey the rules. They don't respect the Japanese culture. It means they are not obeying the Japanese people. So it can be understood. Mostly they are doing out of protest and they are just walking around on the streets. They say they won't want immigrants. They are just some doing the bad thing. For example, even think about the Kurds. They have just go there 20 years or 30 years before and they just make a settle up in Tokyo, but mostly they are living in the not the Tokyo, away from Tokyo. Maybe the Warabistan, they are saying like Warabistan is not true. Some like it's the ideal and the imagination country, Warabistan. Mostly they are some like living in the away from this Tokyo center. Maybe other things, which is the other mentioned like I'm not sure like the where the Kurds are living like in Japan. Where Kurds are living in Japan. I was just thinking about the Waraguchi. I'm not sure Waraguchi or the other things like the Kawaguchi. Yeah, mostly the Saitama prefecture, Warabi Saitama, and the Tokyo Yokohama. But as I mentioned, Kawaguchi mostly they are linked that Japanese people want them. You cannot do the bad things. You cannot shit on the ground, and you cannot start the protest. And you cannot hang the flag. Mostly Japanese elderly people don't like the Kurds, and they don't like to respect the Kurds, etc. It is so hard for them. They are not accepting that. They are very different in a harmony. Even the Kurds people cannot just go to the schools, something like that. They are children because they are seeking asylum there. After you're seeking asylum, it means that you are not labeling as a labor and people not allow you to just get the more resources if you just your status as an like the asylum seeker, like the sign like a asylum seeker status. Mostly it is so hard for you to find a job. How we can just seek asylum in Japan? If you just go there and seek asylum as a tourist visa, and then you can just start your job as a worker as a construction worker in Japan. And most people that's doing it in that kind of business. Why most of the Japanese people giving much more jobs to asylum seekers? Mostly if something bad happen is in a construction job, if they just get hurt their bodies, they don't have to save this kind of people because they are asylum seekers. Their visa status are very low. They can just control and manage you, and they can use and just split you away. So it is so understandable here. So the estimated 2000 or 2000s or 4000 people are living in the some like in Japan, but many arrived since 1990s. Then like 1990s, yeah, 1990s, yeah. Mostly many arrived in 1990s. Many arrived since the 1990s, so it's understandable. So ethical and homogeneous, very strict on immigration. So Kurds highly visible despite small numbers, especially in Kawaguchi, where Kurdish shops, cafes, communities, networks are also social friction, sometimes apples in local media. But even mostly they are working in a kebab shops, kebab stores, and most people are trying to sell the kebabs. I have seen a lot of people, and even the Turkish people going there and trying to open a kebab store, and they are trying to sell their items. Yeah, so different. So the other things we want to mention, it is so hard, and we are going to finish this section in the 6th, and lastly, we are going to think about it. So it's very important, as I mentioned it before. Mostly, even you be a half there in Japan, mostly people don't accept you. It's so hard being a half child there. You cannot get accepted by the societal structures. So you need to be alone there, and it's so hard for you. People will not going to speak with you if you are not 101% Japanese. 100 out of 101. Even you just became 101% Japanese, people people. If you want to get accepted by the society, you need to be 101% Japanese. Like your father and mother should be Japanese. Yeah, your mother and father should be Japanese. Why Japanese people do not like immigrants? Harmony overrides the philosophical core. A society not built by immigration, isolation turned into policy. Like trauma reinforcing fear of the disorder, modernization without demographic openness, economic need colliding with cultural resistance. What does Japanese society ultimately protect? Harmony. Harmony is the highest social value. What rights doesn't person have? Will this cause trouble? And inclusion, absorption, inclusion, allowing persons absorption, full social integration. Integration in Japan is really hard. Even they're getting more immigrants and they cannot integrate them because learning the Japanese is not easy peasy. You need to learn hiragana, kanji, hiragana, katakana, and kanji. Even I have the GLPT entry document. They are not accepting me, and they are thinking like you also need to understand your status. And even you get more Japanese, and there are a bunch of black companies in Japan. They want to just exploit your job, exploit your work. But also, it's everywhere else. It's not only Japan, but also in other countries as well, even in America and in other countries. So the other things I want to mention that, but they have a right to go to the abroad. They have a right to just be a holiday. Even we are comparing the situation to Turkey, the Japanese structure is better. Okay. So the other things we understand that, like the sociologist Takayuki Tsutada explains Japan practices a model of managed diversity without pluralism. Difference is tolerated but not normalized. While exclusion is quiet, not violent, conflict is avoided, aggression is minimized, discrimination becomes direct. Mostly, if you are immigrants, you can get the discrimination. Even they don't see your face with a peacefully, they hate from you and they are talking from your back. Even they hate from you, they are not saying your face directly, but they are talking about your back. So you need to understand. They're home and tatamae, as I mentioned that before. So the integration is really hard, brother. And maybe if you are not very fully Japanese, maybe you cannot get accepted by the Japanese society. So the hiring, selling, housing refusal, permanent outsider labeling, social distance without explaining. Maybe you can get labeled outsider and people don't accept you. A society that appears polite and safe yet remains deeply closed. The immigration is moral risk, uncertainty, norm recognition, potential fragmentation. Japan doesn't ask are immigrants good or bad. Japan asks can harmony survive this change? Even you can contribute or not. Maybe it's also one thing, but not only the one thing. The other thing is can survive in a harmony, or will they going to change or harmony? That's the reason what they don't like to change. And if you just come here from the outside, maybe they can respect you if you don't try to change the Japanese society, if you just obey the rules. That's so different things. Even in the metro, they are so silent, you cannot talk with anyone else because you need to keep the harmony alive. Japan now faces a historical crossroads. Demographic decline makes immigration increasingly necessary. Cultural harmony makes emotional difficult. Can a harmony-based society transform without losing itself? The Japanese resistance to immigration is not rooted in hatred, but in historical produced fear of disorder, reinforced by isolation, nationalism, trauma, and a philosophical commitment to a harmony over rights. So there are a bunch of OECD reports, multicultural Japan, Japan's invisible race, strangers in the ethnic homeland, thought and behavior in modern Japanese politics. So it's important. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for listening until now. I hope this video can be useful for the people who are just trying to live in Japan, who have just born in Japan as a half Japanese mother or father. So it can be hard for you if you are a child. Maybe you can understand this video even if you are Chinese. Maybe your father is Chinese. Maybe your mother is Japanese. Maybe your father is Japanese. Your mother is Chinese. It's so different. And maybe your father is Chinese. Your mother is Japanese. It's so hard. It is so hard to get accepted by their culture. If you are living in Japan, maybe you can just understand the discrimination. It's so hard. Why Goran? Nisha Bushi Why Goran ma Ruga Nishi Why Goran da Chuha Buhaya Ni Kuyi Chu Lai Chunga da Ran Han Ha Pialian Ni Bishu Han Ha Pialian 我觉得我的日记不好，我没有女朋友，所以我不可以结婚，所以我不开心。如果我有钱，我想结婚。谢谢你，你听懂我的播客。Thank you so much for listening my conversation here, and I'm so thanksgiving for you. ありがとうございます。ありがとうございます。ありがとうございます。そうです。お願いいたします。今までにも聞いてくれてありがとう。そう、他のビデオがありましたので、ありがとう。Please, like, コメント、登録、お願いいたします。ようこそお願いいたします。よろしくお願いいたします。So, thanks for watching until now. See you on next video. Goodbye. Thank you.